Morning, welcome to Thoughts and Updates here in sunny Scotland. It is still lockdown. We're at level 4 of the Scottish Government's tiered system, which means that we are not allowed to be in each other's houses, although there are certain exceptions. And my daughter's up this weekend, first time since the 23rd of August that we've had her up, which was the first time since March before the big lockdown. So there's no degree of normality here, and there are certainly things happening which hopefully we'll see the R number reduced. Hopefully we'll see us going back to some kind of normality. Today, however, I am reminded of a couple of things which have got nothing to do with lockdown, and I'll come to them in a minute, and things that I have learnt this week, because there has been the death over the weekend of somebody who's a massive pioneer and who brought news of Sir Edmund Hillary and Sherpa Tenzing getting to the summit of Everest for the very first time in 1953, but I bet you didn't know how significant that was. In terms of writing over the last week, I am getting to the end of my articles this weekend. Scottish Football Supporters Association, looking back at what happened in terms of failing to qualify with the loss to Israel in the European Nations League, which I don't think is a bad thing. Also, Mr. Silhavi, the Czech national coach, getting stopped coming into Scotland because of comments that he made in the aftermath of that. Also for Ringside Report, I've been looking at the fight history of Michael Moorer in the context of the new bridge division that's been suggested between cruiserweight and heavyweight by the WBC. Also looking at Mr. Trump and Mr. Giuliani, who both seem to have issues with regards to their hair. Mr. Giuliani is seen during the week sweating ink down the side of his face. In terms of reviewing this week, I've not managed to post any reviews this week. A couple are coming. I've got some to watch. Lung Ha, I hear, is a fantastic piece of theatre. The Bus Stop, which is a must watch if you really like that kind of thing, and I would suggest we all should. So it's been a difficult and an interesting week. Yesterday morning, it was announced that Jan Morris died. Born in 1926, by the age of 3 or 4, she realised that she had been born into the wrong body and began a long process that by 1974 saw her publish work which told the world that she believed that she needed to move from being a man into being a woman. She was born James Morris and she died yesterday as Jan Morris. She was the one who gave us the news that Sherpa Tenzing and Sir Edmund Hillary had managed to get to the summit of Everest. A journalist with over 30 books, I believe, to her name, including one called Pax Britannica, which were hugely popular. She wrote for the Times, then ended up writing for the Guardian because she fell out with the Times over their stance on the Suez crisis. She broke the news that the French were part of the attack on Egypt during the Suez crisis. So she was a bit of a pioneering journalist, and certainly somebody who was unavoidable during that time, not because of her transgender status, but because of her abilities. And that is something that we mourn, I think, first and foremost, that we have lost somebody of such great ability, wit and enthusiasm for truth and honesty in journalism, but also truth and honesty in how she is perceived, because as the very first transgender woman in the United Kingdom, she was a pioneer in a very different way. And it led me to consider how I view J.K. Rowling, the Scottish-born author who has caused consternation and indeed fury within the transgender community. Let me start by saying J.K. Rowling is wrong. Unequivocally, absolutely, totally. The idea that women are only women because they menstruate is something that can be taken as quite offensive. Partly, I think, because we should see how transgender people are seen, not just because of the physicality of who they are, but also the emotional torment that they go through in terms of their gender dysphoria. To divide the two out is a bit like dividing mental illness from real illness. from physical illness and suggesting that it's not real. The fact is, of course it is. And of course gender dysphoria is real, and of course feeling as though you're trapped in the wrong body is devastating and horrible and really, really important in this debate. So to define your gender on the basis of physicality is, to me, missing the pig-in point. And J.K. Rowling does so. Many others do as well, although she believes that she supports transgender people, and she does. She does believe that transgender people have the right to be who they are and the right to be perceived in the way they are. It doesn't help that her latest Cormoran Strike novel has come out, where the person who is the killer is somebody who pretends to be transgender. And it's perhaps because she has looked into and she spent time researching that she's made her opinions known. Of course, people have come out against her, including most of those actors who were in Harry Potter, and that makes it in itself newsworthy, because people want to hear that if you're going to say something controversial, that people will see it as controversial and will say something about it, particularly those people closest to you, or indeed those who have found their career hugely influenced by you. And here is where I have an issue with those who have attacked J.K. Rowling. Some of the things that have been said to her on Twitter publicly and privately are just dreadful. They're appalling. Suggesting that she should die, that there are terrible events that should happen to her, particularly as a woman who has suffered domestic abuse. These are torments, traumas, things that should never happen, and indeed people taking advantage of them for their own political point of view is quite frankly disgraceful. What we should do is we should debate the issues, and therefore, where I do not believe that I will defend to the right people's right to say things with which I do not agree, I also make a choice over what it is that I want to be offended by. I'm not offended by what J.K. Rowling says. It's part of the debate. I can understand that transgender people will feel that they are some way or some point offended by what she believes. I get that. But the purpose of offence is not to destroy the people who offend you. It's to find the argument to defeat them. So the cancel culture and the attacks made on people who have a very different point of view from the one that you express are as equally damaging as the opinions being formed and expressed by people like J.K. Rowling. And our response should be love, understanding, and indeed engagement, not cancelling. To cancel is to go back to the illiberal liberalism that has plagued us for many, many years. That's not to say that hate crime is part of that parcel and people saying certain words should be allowed because that's freedom of speech. No, that's hate crime. These are words that are used in order to maim, hurt, or incite others to so do. I'm talking about opinions that are genuinely held. So to attack people who differ in their viewpoints from us, I think is as damaging to the people who are saying those things as to the debate itself, and indeed to the acceptance of LGBTQI people throughout the world. It's not necessarily going to be a radical point of view. In fact, it's probably quite conservative. I'm okay with that, because I believe that love is what we should have for all of our people, not hate. And some of the things that have been said to the likes of J.K. Rowling and others who disagree with the radical agenda that's set out by some LGBT people is as equally as bad as the distress and the pain that they have suffered over many, many years. I don't think the PC debate has gone far enough yet in order to work out how we deal with this, because until my son can walk down the street hand in hand with his boyfriend and be accepted, then the debate hasn't brought about the change that is necessary to be the type of people that we should be. and particularly in Scotland. I saw on Facebook a lovely wee joke. All of us in Scotland are told that we should go and work from home if we're able to, and I'm doing that here in Lorna. My partner also is doing that as much as possible. The joke goes that in Scotland one day, God was seen walking around, and somebody stopped him and said, "God, what are you doing here?" To which he smiled ruefully and said, "Working from home." So, from working from home, until the next time, bye for now.